Okay. I'm on? Okay. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear? Hello? How is everyone tonight? Good. Well, I want to thank you for coming, and also the people on 990. Please turn off your cell phones, and then we'll have questions at the end. So then you'll hold your questions till then. And so I'm going to introduce our speakers for tonight. Barb Kern-Pye and Steve Pye. And they have always enjoyed learning. So in retirement, they have expanded their travel hobby and present educational presentations about their travel experiences. Barb and Steve have paddled all 7 continents, have taken the plunge into the Arctic and the Antarctic oceans, and visited World Heritage sites around the globe. Steve is the former director of senior activities for the city of Minnetonka. Barb's professional career spans from delivering babies to forensic nursing and forensic interviewing. Both Barb and Steve are observant learners and skilled presenters. The Kern-Pyes have given over 75 presentations in the metropolitan area and often are requested as repeat presenters. We hope you will enjoy the presentation by them tonight. And Steve is going to start us off.
Thank you very much. We like to often start a presentation with a few trivias to get you kind of thinking. And in this case, we're talking about the Amazon. And so your first question, and you can't Google. The only rule on this is no Googling. 3 long rivers in the world, the Nile, the Mississippi, the Amazon. Which one's longer? Nile. I hear Nile. I hear Amazon. I'm not an auctioneer. The longest one is actually the Nile. 4,132 miles. Amazon is close at 4,000 miles. So we're going to talk tonight about the Amazon. It's 4,000 miles long. Take a guess. How many bridges are there on that Amazon River in 4,000 miles? You might not have ever thought of that. Any guesses? How many bridges?
I heard 6 over here.
The answer is 0. There's not a bridge on the whole thing, and we'll talk about this. When the Amazon River, for example, gets to the Atlantic Ocean, how wide is it? If you think of the Minnesota-Iowa border, from border to border, that's about 250 miles wide. When the Amazon River reaches the Atlantic Ocean, it's literally 250 miles wide. So that's one of the reasons you don't have bridges on the Amazon. It would cost a lot. A hint, we're going to Peru. What is the world's largest city? There's about 500,000 people that live there. What's the world's largest city you can't drive to? You can only get there by boat or flying. There are no roads to the city. Not Lima, Iquitos. So we're going to go to Iquitos and we'll talk about that. But for your trivia, it's the world's biggest city with 500,000 people you cannot drive to. And last but not least, if you haven't seen the piranha teeth, we're going to talk about piranha and bananas. If my hand was a bunch of bananas, do bananas grow up or do bananas grow down? Ooh, how many in favor of down? How many want to change their mind? Bananas actually grow up. They don't go down, they go up. So there's some trivia, and we're going to get started, and we'll make sure if we're in the way, tell us, and we will move.
I was going to have us each introduce ourselves, but she did such a nice job. Thank you for that, Marilyn. But I am Barb Kern-Pye, and I had worked at Hennepin County Medical Center for much of my career, along with Linda Thompson. Or can you drive? So my name is Barb Kernpai, and I'm a retired forensic nurse for now. But the first part of our trip is that we're going to fly from Minneapolis to Lima, Peru.
This is, you have to appreciate humor and why this is here. We didn't even, I'm sorry, McDonald's, we didn't even buy any food from you. If you look at this, this is at Lima at 2 in the morning. I had just retired from 40 years of working at senior citizen centers. And it struck me so funny, here you order your food and retire is basically take your stuff and get out of here. And I just retired and I had taken my stuff and I got out of there. So that struck me funny. It was our third flight of the day. And at 2 in the morning, I still remember that.
So we're going to go from the United States to Peru. And this blue line here is the route that the Amazon River takes from where it leaves the base of the Andes Mountains in Arequipa, Peru, and then flows all the way to the Atlantic Ocean. So there's over 4,000 miles, but the first 1,300 miles actually are in Peru. And so we think of how we get there.
The Sky is one of their main airlines, and it's always so much faster when you can use both ends of the airplane. One of the key things is to have a wonderful travel partner like Barb is, and LATAM is also one of their main airlines in that part of the world.
So the area circled in red here is the Amazon Basin, which is a huge part of South America. But that little dot in the black in the middle, that's where we're going to look at today. So even though we've seen a lot of the Amazon, we've seen just a minute portion. And as we're coming in, this is what it looks like. There are rivers and water almost everywhere, and they're braided rivers. They don't flow downhill very fast because it's so flat in the area. So there's just water everywhere, and curlicues and backwaters. And
Barb, try putting your finger on the picture and see if it goes wide. Okay.
Here, thank you.
Nope.
Here.
So Lima down here, and then flying to Iquitos.
And Iquitos is where three rivers come together. The main one, of course, is the Amazon, but because they converge there, this is a crossroads of river traffic. Our trip was organized through a group called Amazonia Expeditions, and this was started by an American explorer who set up camping trips for Americans to come look at the Amazon, and he finally realized that there were better ways to do things. But they had 16 really fine naturalist guides. Our guide is Ronald Recopa, and his father was a shaman in the Amazon jungle. He knew the common plants and how they could be used, and if you've got athlete's foot, we've got the cream for you. But he would share stories about growing up in the jungle and how he didn't have shoes, so he couldn't go to school for his third grade year. And yet he knew so much about the jungle.
Once we get into the town itself, this is Iquitos with 500,000 people, so there are roads and cars that just don't go anywhere, and most people get around with these three-wheeled tuk-tuks. Some have motorcycles, and everything they need they're carrying down the road.
And the streets were crowded, but they can only drive 20 or 30 miles till they get to the next village, and they're surrounded by water when they get there, too.
This is the farmer's market, what we would call the farmer's market that we were passing through on our way to the boat.
We're going to travel down the stairs to this boathouse here with a red shed in it. That's our boat ticket to go up the Amazon, or down the Amazon.
This is a whole family taking their bananas, which grow up. And you'll notice this is their typical propeller. It's really long with the prop in the back.
There are more boats than cars in the city of Iquitos, probably because that's the easiest way to get around. They even have water taxis that go from one village to another. Some have set routes, and some you just pay where you want to go that day, that time. The wood industry is really big here. So if you harvest some trees and bring them into Iquitos, they'll make them into furniture and tables and send them around the world. But in the early 1900s, Iquitos, the city, was the biggest rubber harvesting place. You would go out in the jungle, you'd harvest some rubber, you'd bring it into Iquitos, and it would be sold. So many of the people in that village or that city were very wealthy because of the rubber industry.
You can see in the front, this is all bananas, And I'm not sure if this is charcoal or onions.
or onions.
Squash, and then the local people. So this is how you get around when you're not on an airplane.
And they even deliver the petroleum. Everything comes in and out of this village by boat, unless you're rich or big enough to fly in by airplane. So you can see that the levels of the boat here, cargo on the front, passengers on the top, and I think second class and third class passengers had to sit in the middle.
You can see that two of the rivers come together in the middle of the river, and there's just kind of some standing waves. The river here is just a few miles wide, so it's not 250 miles. We have these pictures when you think of water going up and down by about 40 to 50 feet per season. You end up getting all these trees that are getting washed down. So we have left Iquitos, and we're in this boat for 4 hours. And this is not so much a picture of showing Barb. It's more if you look into the water, you'll start to just see a lot of trees and debris. And sometimes the driver is going like they're drunk, that they're just trying to miss the logs that are continually going down the river.
And as the water raises, it finds new debris to bring down the river. And as it drops, it digs up more debris. So we left from the city of Iquitos by the 4-hour fast boat. And when we got to Towayo River, we're going to follow the blue track here. So the Amazon continues to run as the green river, or the green marking on the map. We're going to go to the Towayo Lodge. And the Towayo Lodge and the Amazon Research Center are the two places we're going to stay when we get to the Amazon Research Center. This is a map showing us some of the things we're going to look at when we get there. But this is the Towayo Lodge. And you notice everything is up on stilts. And there's a reason for that, because the water level changes sometimes just in one day by 5 feet, but in the year, 40 or 50 feet. So this is what the lodge looks like from the air.
You can see some solar panels. There's no roads here. There's no electricity. So it's either solar during certain hours of the day. Once in a while, they run a generator. You can see down where the river is, way down there. We're there in the dry season, the low season, and the year before we got here in 2021, they closed the lodge down because the buildings were all flooded. And so that's how much the river goes.
So the cabins or the little lodging rooms are sometimes 2 stories, sometimes they're just 1 story. They all have indoor plumbing, and that's what you're seeing on the back side of the hut here. And
from a mosquito perspective, we don't think of the mosquitoes too often. From a mosquito perspective, they like and want a certain type of pH in the water. And from a person perspective, the good news is the river has the wrong type of pH. So there basically aren't any mosquitoes. So people think, how many mosquitoes were there? And the answer is really none. We're chuckling if those of you that happened to go to church last Sunday was Palm Sunday. And I was thinking, you know, as the kids are going around the sanctuary, wouldn't they have fun waving some of those palms? They would be in heaven.
they actually harvest these palms, and the palms are used for the roofs of each of the shelters and the walkways. And if it was raining really hard and the palms started to leak, they would just go up there and adjust it a little bit.
You want to focus on these two chairs and then think of where the river is and think of these two chairs.
And this is in another season. Those two chairs are still there, and the water is all the way up there. So over 150 yards from where we would come up from the river. So again, just these beautiful palm roofs sheltering us. So whenever we walked from one building to another, we were always...
We'll listen to some rain. Oh, peaceful.
And there was a gentle rain that fell every other hour or every other day. You never knew it was going to come, but it would come. It was always warm. And then when it was done raining, it was humid and sunny. So again, all the walkways were elevated for a couple of reasons. One, so in the high water that we wouldn't have to walk through there, but also to keep the seeds and the spores and things that would come in on our shoes off of their soil.
This is a typical spot where the sun comes up every day about 6. It goes down every night about 6. You do early morning breakfast, early morning activities. You take a nice hammock siesta in the middle of the day, and then do some later on evening and at night activities because it's dark by 6 o'clock. So we did some night paddles and some night walks. If you know, what's the name of the biggest snake? Just shout out if you know the big snake they have there. It's 20 feet long by 500 pounds.
We've got it right here. He's
Anaconda, very good. So this is where they were doing the laundry for the lodge. And the woman that was doing the laundry said, there's been a snake with me all week right next to me, an anaconda. And why did the snake not bother her? When an anaconda eats a big meal, it takes almost a week to digest the big meal, and the snake basically just lays there. And so you're totally safe.
So she would wash clothes and sheets, and if it was nice weather, she would hang it outside, and otherwise she'd hang it underneath a roof to help dry. But it was so humid, it almost never dried anyway. Our food was excellent. The chefs were formally trained in chef school, and there was always a good supply. This is an egg, some avocado, some tomatoes, and some sweet potatoes.
My favorite bananas, they have the bananas in all the different sizes and a lot of different colors. They have red bananas and all sorts of different types of bananas. One of the things that struck us funny as we're looking at these food pictures, we asked them once, what do you feed your local staff? And they said, they're not interested in anything you're eating. They don't want American or Western food. They wanted fish and rice. And so they did not have any interest in pancakes or the kind of a Western meal.
When there were a lot of people in the camp, and there were sometimes when they would serve it buffet style, and when there was just 3 or 4, we would have it plated for us. It was always delicious, though. And I want you to notice here, the chef is Verline, and he actually signed this chicken breast and rice meal. And
One
this is
advantage of-
Verline in the kitchen. And this kitchen was raised the year before we got there by 6 feet to keep it out of floodwater, and so it's a totally rebuilt kitchen.
I was going to say the positive thing of traveling during COVID is that there were so few people there. Often it was Barb and I, maybe 4 people total, maybe 6 people total. So they had time to play around with putting their name on the plate. We felt like tall people down there. Most of the local folks are shorter, so we ended up being taller, but they were very proud of their brand new kitchen.
And they also cook with natural gas, and they use the natural gas to run their refrigeration systems too. So everything was really food safe, but they use gas to power it.
I felt like Pavlov's dog. So this is if you look at the picture, it's 6:07, and every night at exactly 6 o'clock, no matter where we were, they would bring us popcorn. We got to the point, is it time for popcorn? Is it time for popcorn? Oh, it must be 6 o'clock.
At 6 o'clock at night, too, there was still some solar energy. So if we wanted to do some emailing or using our devices, we could do it during that time.
This is our captain, and I asked him simply to show you the long shaft. And he's going to turn the boat and lift it out of the water. The whole reason they do that is there's a huge amount of debris in the rivers, and sometimes we were just constantly hitting logs. And so if you had a boat like Lake Minnetonka where the propeller is down well below, it would just constantly break the prop. So as you're going along and you hit the log goes down, he very quickly lifts the prop out of the water, and you keep going. They never broke a prop, and we hit numerous logs in the river. This is Goomer, our driver one day.
And he's helping tow a boat because we're going to go do something upriver. So we're swimming with piranhas right now. And the piranhas in the movies are going to attack you and eat you. But what they told us is if we didn't splash wildly and if we weren't bleeding from a big cut, we would be fine. And it turns out we were. And we're still in love.
Oh, how romantic. How romantic. You notice the size of the motor. This is one of the big motors. This is a 15 horse. You probably on Lake Minnetonka don't even have a 15 horse. This is a true picture, a pink dolphin. In that part of the Amazon River, they do have pink dolphins. We saw them. We never saw one this close, so this one is off the internet, but this is actually how they look, and they get pink based on their diet in this part of the Amazon.
So we're going to go up the Rio Blanco, which actually means the White River. And our guide sits in the front of the boat, and he'll point out things as we paddle or motor along. And this is where the big motor out the back end, the propeller, if it hits any logs, it just pops up over it. And he pointed to this thing and he said, look at those bats. So what we found is that there were bats hanging on the side of this log in the middle of the river.
They're daytime bats. We're thinking of bats as nighttime, but this was in the absolute middle of the day, out sunning themselves, and we're going to get to terra firma.
So terra firma actually means firm ground or dry ground. So the area that we're heading to today is high enough that it doesn't flood for half the year.
The poison dart frogs were incredibly beautiful and very small. Traditionally, the hunters would catch the poison frog. They would tip it over. They would rub their arrow on the belly, and then they would go hunting the animals. A couple things. They didn't want to harm the frog, and so they would release the frog. And then after they cooked the animal that they had got, the cooking, the heat process got rid of the poison, and so that's how the people were not poisoned by the poison frogs.
So you can see how small that frog is. They're not very big, but they're very mighty in terms of the amount of poison on their belly.
They make our green frogs in Minnesota look kind of blah. They were good-looking frogs.
Here we are. We're going to cross a ravine here. When you look at it, the ravine is probably only 20 feet deep, but by walking across this log very slowly.
This is not shot in slow motion. This is how slow we went. It was really slippery. Oh, look at that. Oh.
Whoops. Sorry about that.
Oh, here we go back to there.
Back to the movie. Okay.
These are some bats that are flying around a hollow log, and we simply have a light on them to see the bats as they fly around.
So lunch today, it was raining out, so our hair is sort of wet, but
I'm a person that loves campfires, and I'm convinced this is the way to go. After all those years of bending over down to the ground, they have all of their campfires in a wooden box with sand where you can stand up and you don't have to bend over. And also, if it rains a lot, which it does, the water will not wash out your fire if you have it up in the air. So they had their fires in a box in sand, and it worked out really well.
so our lunch that day is rice and a stew with some chicken in it and a wonderful salad. And this is the village of San Pedro, which is up the White River, or the White Stream. And you'll notice that some of the boats are modern boats and others are dugout canoes. In the village, the people here will take their boats and go 5 miles downriver to get their children to school.
Some beautiful insects. Some looked kind of like our ladybugs.
And just for scale, that's my hand and my ring there. This is a tarantula.
That's about the size of my hand with my fingers open. A damselfly. This is technology. Barb and I, our iPad crashed. It was about 7 or 8 years old. We got a new one. The new ones have the artificial intelligence. And if you haven't got one of those yet, we never knew what this animal was. And all you have to do is ask it, and it immediately tells you it's a spotted lanternfly nymph. We've done this talk probably 6 or 7 times, and we've always said at this point, this is really a pretty animal. We have no idea what it is. And now with the smarter devices, you just have to ask, and it'll tell you exactly what it is.
This is a scorpion, but we knew what that one was. Now, the next video you're going to watch is about a bullet ant. And you can see the bullet ant here, and it was about 1.5 inches long. But because it's so poisonous, our guide is going to let it walk up and down a stick. So might be able to see that it's walking up and down the stick, and he'll just move it from hand to hand.
This is the whole reason you have a guide and you don't go out in the jungle without the guide. He had been bitten by these. I've never fortunately been shot, but he said it was incredibly painful. And that's why they call the bullet, because it's like getting shot.
Here's a trumpet wasp nest. And if you can imagine, if it rains an hour or two every day, the nest is going to stay dry because it's underneath a big leaf. And also it's shaped like a pipe. And so the water doesn't go up into the nesting part.
For the termites, if you think of water going up 40, 50 feet, you don't want to build your nest down on the ground because it's going to be obviously flooded out. So this is one of their nests way up in the air. It was probably 50 feet up in the air to avoid the water flooding it out. And another one, an ant colony, rather than being on the ground, it needs to be way up in the air.
This is an ant colony that lives on the ground, though, because it's in the area where it doesn't flood. And the ants here are collecting parts of leaves, and they take them back to the anthill, where they make a brew that actually has a yeast in it, and it becomes very nutrient rich.
One of the things we haven't figured out yet that's a really cool thing that the ants have figured out is if a bunch of ants are on you, they somehow communicate to each other, and they say, this is when we're going to bite. They all bite at the same time, and it greatly amplifies the pain. And you just think of how are these little ants actually communicating, we're going to bite at the same time. And they have figured that out. I'm not sure how many legs are on this centipede, but a whole bunch.
We're thinking it's over 100, but we didn't count.
This was about the size of my hand, just slowly walking around one of the buildings. A beautiful animal.
And this was our chance to eat insects. So this is an edible larvae, and it comes from he cut it out of a nut. So you can see in that nut there would probably be 8 different places where you could get something like an almond out of it. But the ones that have turned into the larvae were the ones that we ate. So he would take them out. They were actually very delicious. They had a crunch to the outside and a soft, creamy inside that tasted like almond. And if you didn't know what you were eating, you might think it was the most delectable chocolate center without the chocolate that you'd ever tasted. Some of our daily activities, we got to choose what we wanted to do. So we could go hiking, canoeing, boating, fishing. We could do photography lessons. We could go birding. We could look for animals. And we could do this in the morning, in the afternoon, and the night. And so we chose something different to do each day.
Again, we were laughing as people that didn't know anything. When we got there, we thought, why do they have the signs so high? And then we learned the water goes up to 50 feet higher, and we're there in the dry season, and so you have to put your signs way up in the air for the wet season.
And this is just telling us that we're entering an area where there's protected wildlife and protected plants and animals.
We're going to go canoeing. I would call this a boat, but they call these canoes. Made out of wood. If you're a canoe person, you know that in Minnesota, in the Boundary Waters, the person in the back steers. Here, the person in the front always steers, and the person in the front, it's lower in the front. They had a very extensive hiking system, a trail system. Half the year they hike, and half the year they canoe the hiking trails. And so the person in the front knows the snakes and knows the animals, and so they are steering from the front. So that's me in the back. I'm just there for power, but the actual, if you think of a J-stroke, it was hard not to do a J-stroke from the back of the canoe, but they steered from the front.
And you didn't have to do canoeing. So if you wanted to go and just go for a motorboat ride 3 times a day, you could do that too. But this is Steve with a real paddle. And this is Steve with a...
For the musicians in the room, one of their folks down there had a friend who played guitar, and he actually made this paddle for his friend who was a guitar player. I have never paddled with a guitar before. That was delightful.
And if you can think that some of the year that we would be under 30 feet of the water at the high water times, so you wouldn't even know that this downed tree was there, but we're going to paddle underneath it, and sometimes you paddle around it, and sometimes over it, and you never know what's underneath the water. When we did go hiking, we always had to wear their boots. Those boots were cleaned and sanitized, and we wouldn't be bringing in any of our seeds or our spores, and so they could keep the soil as pristine as it could be.
The walking palm, these are a neat adaptation. In the life of the palm, it's going to try to go towards the sun, and it will move 2-3 feet as a tree. And so the root that's got the most sunlight, the tree starts going towards the sunlight, it gets more nutrition. And so they call it a walking palm because it'll literally move a couple of feet in its life towards the sunlight. This is an early way before paper. Our guide Ronald was saying this is the bottom of a fern. And if you think of you don't have paper and you don't have a pen, he wrote Barb and Steve and Ronald, and Barb, I'm sure, is writing a love note to me. But that's what they used, is the bottom of a...
it was actually the bottom of a... like
fungus.
Fungus, yeah.
Yeah.
The roots of the trees have to be really adaptable to high water, low water, and keep the tree stable. So this might be the root of 5 trees. It might be the root of only 1 tree, just spread out so that it gets down to the forest floor. When we were going hiking with Ronald, he would go in advance and use his machete and get rid of things that might be harmful to us. But you can see we're hiking through these trails that are nicely developed. And he knew where everything was. This particular tree had an antifungal property. So if you had athlete's foot, you would go up and you'd take some of the sap from it and rub on your toes, and your athlete's foot was cured. This vine, this is a vine. He was saying if you're ever stuck away from the river and you're thirsty, you cut this vine. There was an amazing amount of water. I'm the second person on this vine, and the water just kept coming and coming and coming. So he said it was used when people are out of water to cut the vine. The bark of this vine also is a very good agent for enlarged prostate. So he cut several lengths of this bark and took it home to his father-in-law. So here he is, walking in his boots and using his machete to make the trail safe for us.
If you think of the paddles, the 2 little ones, and if you think of a smaller version of a tree like this, that's really how they're making their paddles. They were not able to laminate strips of wood together like our wooden paddles are today, and so the fins, if you will, is how they made the canoe paddles. Be thinking of if you're an early explorer and now you're going to go 1,000 miles, 500 miles, and you're walking through something like this, how incredibly exhausting it would be without a trail to bust your way through.
And because the canopy is so thick above you, you can never tell which direction the sun is coming in. So you're always in the shade. Just the different root systems were so interesting to look at and imagine all the things you could do with them. They also were really creative with how they used vines. The vines have to grow high to get to the sunlight, and so sometimes they'll twist around each other. They would use these pieces of wood for decorating furniture or making an ornamental handrail for something, and just imagining how much beautiful wood there was there. So just that vine wrapped around the side of the trail, or that vine wrapped around the tree.
You can see how far the tree roots in low water season have to go all the way down to the river. In the high water season, those roots would all be flooded. We're going to go fishing for piranhas, and they actually have a tree called a fishing pole tree in English. So these are the poles. They're very flexible, and they're very strong. They worked great. And we're starting out with some leftovers from the kitchen,
Chicken gizzards.
chicken gizzards, and we caught some catfish, which become bait. What are we looking at here? Two things we're looking at. In the summer, along the river here, the birds make their nests, and in the high water season, the catfish come in and they use it as nests for catfish.
So those holes serve two purposes, two different groups of animals. So this is the red-bellied piranha, and you can see the sharp teeth. And if you didn't get to see the jaw that we have up here, the teeth are very sharp. And most of the guides did have a little scar somewhere on their hands from the piranhas.
And if you look carefully, you notice that the teeth are really just on the bottom. They're not so much on the top. It's primarily just the bottom.
And sometimes they would snap at the bait and couldn't get it all in their mouth. So
This would be a good example. You know, in Minnesota, you would use a metal stringer. You would use some kind of a stringer. They don't want to do that just dollar-wise, money-wise. And so this is simply a J-shaped piece of wood that they cut with their machete, and so that's their stringer. They would certainly not go buy a stringer.
And so we had a stringer full of fish. I think I caught the most and Steve caught the biggest, or was it the other way around? But then we took it back to the lodge, and this is how they prepared it for us. They took a knife and they sliced it at the rib level, and then they fried it in oil. And so then we just peeled off the skin, and it was the most delicious, tender white fish. But the rest of the stringer all went to feed the staff. We only got the one.
Did some night hikes. The milky frog. I honestly did not know the milky frog existed till we got there. There's a tiny little one.
And just look how tiny that frog is. We would not have been able to find that without a guide. This is the smoky frog, and this guy is over 6 inches long. He's really a huge frog, and the noise that they made, I wish we had recorded some of the night frog sounds. Here's an interesting adaptation. Some of these are birds' nests, and some of them are hornets' nests, or wasps' nests. And the reason why they live side by side like that, and they look that way, the predators can't tell which one's going to be a hornet nest and which one's going to be a bird's nest, and so they don't bother any of them. In the top of that tree is a bird called a hoatzin, and the hoatzin was the symbol for the lodge we were staying at, but it's a prehistoric bird, really closely related to the dinosaurs. And the fact that we got to see it and we actually saw it flying was a real treat. So the pictures aren't the best, but they were really rare to see that.
We found this just the other day when we asked Siri, what is this? Oh, I'm sorry, Siri heard my voice. Black-footed nunbirds.
Okay, Siri's still working to answer the question. Do you want to
cancel.
send it to ChatGPT? No.
That's how easy it is. At this picture, we went to visit this, turn off Siri.
No, don't talk to her. Okay.
Here we are visiting this village, and look at the height, and we're going to be up on top, and this entire village was getting flooded out every year. And we'll turn the sound on for the boys. This is just universal. Can you see your grandchildren doing this? We'll let it run again. What a delight. Now these same boys, to get rid of the mud, what did they do? They all went swimming in the river. What lives in the river? Piranhas. So what you see in the movies in terms of piranhas are kind of overrated. I took this picture, my mini editorial. I worked for the city recreation in Minnetonka for a long time. If you go to any of our city parks in Minnetonka, what's the symbol we use for a playground? It's a teeter-totter. What does the city not have any of in the city of Minnetonka because of liability? We don't have one teeter-totter in any of our 52 parks, but it's still the symbol to get to the park. So that struck me funny.
So this is the center of this village of El Chino, and this is where the girls play volleyball and the boys play soccer out in the middle. They do have a slide, but again, the houses here are up on stilts, and because the water level actually gets up to that level in the within this village on top of the hill. So there is a grocery store there, and this is one of their things that they're most proud of is their roosters and their chickens. Some of these roosters and chickens will go around, they'll just eat the bugs and the insects off the ground. They're not necessarily fed corn or wheat or anything, but the roosters can bring in they can bring in a whole month's salary if it's ready at the right time for the feast of Saint someone in the month of June. But again, look at their grass roofs, or their palm roofs, I should say. And here's the hen with 4 of her chicks roosting on the boat or on the ladder.
Calabasas, these are quite strong. After they ate it or used it, they would make like bowls. It would hold water. You could use it at the table to put food into. They were extremely proud of this. This has just opened. Their school in town used to always be flooded out, and so the kids had to go to this new school, and they were always walking through the water and mud and all sorts of things. So they built this long bridge to get to their new school, which had just opened, and they were very proud of their new school.
And they had a hard time keeping teachers. If you think of this remote place, you get a teacher, you hire her fresh out of college, and she comes and she stays for a month, and then it takes you a year to get another teacher. So they were having a teacher shortage always. But this is one of the more interesting things that we encountered. They had a cooperative for the women in the neighborhood, and they built a little building, and the women could make baskets or jewelry or we can actually pass some of these around. And so they would make these, and then if ever a tourist came to town, they would all come and set up their wares in a special place, and we were able to buy baskets. And what I did was I bought a big one, and I stacked the next size one inside of it, so that I got one from every basket maker in town.
We're going to talk about the sloth. Now, I didn't get to this on trivia. This is some great trivia. What does the three-toed sloth do once a week? What? Yes.
Yeah.
They are coming. This is it right there. And once a week, just imagine this. Once a week, it climbs down the tree. It digs a hole in the ground. It goes poop and pee. It covers it up, and then it slowly climbs back up the tree. Now, why does it do that once a week? What's its enemy? Its enemy is the jaguar, and it's trying to get rid of the scent of going to the bathroom. And over time, there's a sloth right there. So once a week, it very slowly goes down, digs a hole, does its business, covers it up, and goes back up, just so the jaguar cannot smell where it is. Now, unfortunately for this sloth, it did not make it.
So this is a pile of sloth fur and teeth and bones. If you look closely here, that's a skull bone of the sloth. And our guide said that was one of the claws, or one of the toes.
And the two types, there's three-toed and four-toed. And this is a yellow crown brush tail rat. And this next one, if you really look at it, that's where it is.
Brush-tailed rat. But it blended in so well, it's camouflaged in with the trees. Our guide pointed it out to us, and I had to circle it in yellow so you could see it too.
So what are we looking at right here? It's like an alligator, or it's like a crocodile. It's the caiman. They're 5 or 6 feet long, so they're kind of like a smaller version of an alligator. This one is probably about 6 feet long. Caiman. And at night, when we would go paddling at night, if you would turn your flashlight on the river, what did you see? Oh, you saw these eyes looking at you all over the place.
2 gold diamonds staring back at you from there and there and there.
They were so easy to see at night.
Now the next one, you might have to use your imagination to know this, but that green blob in the middle is an emerald tree boa. And it had eaten before we got there, and so the guide knew it was there digesting its food, And so it hung in that tree, and we went by it 2 or 3 days in a row, and it was always hanging up in that tree in the same place.
We have one of my favorite animals in Minnesota. We actually have them in Minnetonka. I've seen them many times in Minnetonka. The river otter, you see them all over Minnesota. This is a river otter that's out there, and they also have a much larger, it's called the giant otter. This is off the internet, but we did see several of these, just not as close. They're 8 feet long. And so if you think of a river otter that's 8 feet long, unfortunately for them, they make a lot of noise, almost like a barking dog, and they stay together as a group. And so it meant they were very easy traditionally to hunt. They made too much noise and they were too close together. But you still see them there, an 8 foot long giant otter.
And a turtle out sunning himself, probably getting a little bit of vitamin D. Some of the flowers were actually just beautiful, and so many of them, we almost, didn't even notice them because they were there all the time. But we came across this one patch in the jungle where they were all littered across the ground. And turns out the monkeys had just been there. They tore these bromeliads apart, ate the tender parts off the end of the leaf, and threw the rest of the leaf to the ground. So you can see monkeys there, but
You can see this one coming down. If you want to see monkeys really carefully and closely, you should honestly go to the zoo. That's where you can see them. But in their natural state, it was also fun to see them. You're just not as close to them.
at the Amazon Research Center, they were studying the pygmy marmosets because they thought that maybe there would be a difference in how they talked with each other when human noises were around. And so they'd been listening to them and listening to the microphones, and if there was a boat noise in the area, they would chatter different vocalizations.
We're going to see some monkeys here, and if you just watch about there, you'll see one jump and then you'll see another one. Sometimes there would be 15, 20 in a row, just boom, 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 boom. One more will jump across. There's another one.
When we did see the large-headed capuchin monkeys, these were in smaller family groups, but again, far enough away that we could see them, but you wouldn't be able to see it if we showed you the picture that we took. So we took that one from the internet. Thank you very much. Again, the beautiful ways that the wood wrapped itself. Now, if you've ever seen a touch-me-not, it's a sensitive plant, and by touching it, you make it close up. So watch Steve's fingers here as he touches it.
It's going to close.
And it closes up. And it protects it from being eaten by predators and also from the rain or wind damage.
I'm not sure I've seen a plant close like that. It was often difficult to tell where you were because you couldn't see the sun.
The canopy was such a complete coverage. But we did get up into the canopy.
We're going to go up to the top of this tower. It's 115 feet, and we're going to go up in the air and basically make a big square and end up at the same spot again. It was fun to be on top of the canopy, and they are going to haul us up, and they had to work hard to do that. You could either climb a you could go up this ladder, or you could go this way. And so this is the way we went. And then we're going to get to the top and then get connected to some big metal cables and go through. And
One
Barb
of the
looks just like
signatures
this.
of our talks is that we always wear something in the presentation that we're wearing in the slideshow. So I want you to know I'm wearing this shirt that same day.
So here we are. Turn the sound on. So you're going in a big square and ending up. I have a large physical head, and they actually didn't have
Right
any
side.
helmets big enough for me, so they're telling me where to put my head, and you can turn the volume on. Okay.
Really beautiful to see the canopy from that angle.
And here comes Barb.
It's been a long time coming here.
Look for her in the middle there. What a fun way to spend the day. So you go around kind of like this, tower to tower.
And then we transferred from the Towayo Lodge to the Amazon Research Center Lodge. And if you look again here, this is the lodge in high water, and this is the same lodge in our low water while we were there. The person on my left is a researcher from Cambridge University, and she's the one that was studying the pygmy marmoset monkeys. So the Amazon Research Center hosts different research teams from different universities all over the world. They also have this huge grid out there, and I'm not going to read this all to you, but they have over 55 miles of trails. They've got A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4, and wherever A and 1 and B and 2 intersect, they will have a sign or directions or tell you what's there.
This is what you learn as a tourist. It rains just about every day, and if you picture Barb and I, soon after this picture, it started to rain, and what did we do? We put on our ponchos, and in the middle of the rain, I turned around, and what had Goomer done, the local guide, he certainly did not own a poncho and certainly would not carry one around. He just took his dry shirt off, he put it underneath his boat seat and just got totally wet, and as soon as it stopped raining, he put his dry shirt back on and would not have been bothered. Barb and I love to canoe. If you know wood, and when it's wet, it will swell. They on purpose would keep their canoes in the river, and they would keep rainwater in the canoe, and then when you wanted to go canoeing, you would tip it out or use a plastic container, what Barb is doing here. So they keep their canoes in the river so the wood will swell. And this is the local man. He would have carved that paddle, and you can see that he's in the front. That's out of one piece of tree, and he would have made the boat and the paddle.
So we are going to make some Amazon paddles.
We'll get some sound on that.
It's turned on now.
Here we go. This is what they
This
look
is a paddlewood tree, and if you can think of these big trees with these fins going down to support them, that fin is only a couple inches wide, and so they don't need to chop the whole thing apart to make their paddle. So they start with a thin piece of wood or a plain board in a sense. They have used a saw to cut this basic shape. From now on, though, everything we do is going to be done by one machete. Each one has a machete. And they shape the blade. And the reason why they're shaping the blade into a point is that if you're out paddling and you need to get out of your boat, you're going to have a muddy riverbank to paddle up. And so you're going to use this and punch it in the ground and then take your step, and then punch it in the ground and take your next step. So that's why it's pointy on the end.
If you notice the safety wear they have on their feet, and also at this point, we were 6 hours from the closest hospital, the closest town, and so he's sharpening on the stone, his machete. They actually didn't let us use the machete because it's 6 hours to the hospital.
But he's using it to plane the flat part of the blade. They use it to shape the handle and to shape the blade. But they did let us sandpaper. So here
we
are the
varnished and
gringos
sanded.
sandpapering this little paddle. And the word paddle translates to remo. The word for teacher is maestro. So here are los remo maestros, our paddle teachers. So we went out in search of the peacock bass, and these are huge bass that live up in this one particular lake. And so we're paddling up this little stream, and it's beautiful and quiet and calm. And all of a sudden, a 20-pound peacock bass jumped right over me from left to right. So fast we didn't get a picture of it, but my back got wet from the bass jumping over us.
It cleared Barb's head. I don't have a video of it, but it was incredible, left to right over the top of her head.
And while we were there, sometimes we were, 2 or 4 other people in the villages while we were there. But we met a couple. Paola is from Italy. Tony is from Spain. They were there on their honeymoon. We had such a good time meeting Tony and Paola in the Amazon. that the next year they came and went to the Boundary Waters with us. And August 12th of this year, we're going to be in Spain with them for a total eclipse. So some of the friendships that can, on our last night in the lodge, they always make a dessert. This says, come back soon. And boy, I wish we could. But thank you. I've got questions. I have a couple more slides I want to show you, though. If you've enjoyed tonight's presentation, ask Monica to invite us back. We just got back from a 17-day trip through the Northwest Passage. So we went from Greenland through the north of Canada. We went to the Azores in February, and so many interesting things to learn. The Faroe Islands, if you've never heard of them, it's just these intensely interesting places to visit, or Antarctica, which is one of the continents that we have paddled on. So I'll go back to ask if there's any questions.
So questions on Peru or the Amazon? Back here, yes.
You talk about how high the water level is. How much rain do they get in a year?
The question was, how much rain do they get in a year? For example, Iquitos, their biggest city, gets 10 feet of rain per year. So 10 feet a year for their biggest city. A lot of the rivers have steep banks, and so even like on the lodge where we were staying, sometimes the water level would go up a couple feet just from the night before if it's raining upstream.
One of the interesting things we learned about fishing was that the piranhas only feed at the top during the day. So the night fishermen would be there with these long lines fishing for the big fish because the piranha wouldn't come eat their bait.
A question over here.
Were you on the equator?
Were we on the equator?
I'm guessing, I'm wondering how much night did you have? How much day did you have?
It was dark by about 6 o'clock at night. It was kind of like 6 in the morning till 6 at night.
We were a little bit south of the equator, but the daylight and nighttime were equal, pretty equal.
This would be the equator, and we were right there. Yep. Question over here. Or did that answer your question?
Did you have anything that you had to be concerned about or worried about or afraid of? And I saw no weapons that your guides were carrying or you were carrying. And you mentioned Jaguar, and I'm wondering if there's anything that frightened you.
They had trail cameras out, and they had monitored where the Jaguar was the night before. Our guide had that machete. He could do anything with that machete. We weren't afraid.
One of the wonderful stories on trail cams, about a week before we got there, they had some trail cams up in the research part, and they saw the researchers coming back, and about 5 minutes later, what did they see coming down the trail? They saw the Jaguar coming down about 5 minutes after the researcher. Other questions?
I am obsessed by the piranhas. Why do they bite on people but not on the other kinds of fish, like the pink?
The pink dolphin?
Pink dolphins?
Pink dolphins.
The question is, what do the piranhas eat? I think they eat a wide variety of things. They only hunt during the day, and that's like Barb said, if you're baiting, they put the bait very shallow at night, so you'll hear the local people with their motorboats go by, and it's in the middle of the night. They only fish for the carp at night because the piranhas, for whatever reason, don't fish at night, and so they won't eat the bait. But piranhas eat a wide variety of stuff, but it's more the movies where they go super crazy.
And then the local fishermen who were fishing at night would get these big fish that were really valuable. It would be a $40 fish, which is a month's salary for them. So once they caught their fish, that was all the work they had to do for the month.
What do they use as bait? Often other fish. If you had like a kitchen, you might have a cut up, chicken or whatever you happen to have. Catfish is quite often cut up as bait.
We started fishing with chicken gizzards to start with, and then once we caught a catfish, then they used the catfish because it was better bait.
Other questions? Yes, question over here. Do you want to repeat? You've got a mic right by you there.
He was asking if they
I'm
had
wondering
dengue.
if they have dengue fever or chikungunya or any of the newer.
We went to the
infections.
we went to the travel clinic before we went there, and we weren't advised that it was a hot spot for any of those viruses. And we didn't have problems with mosquitoes at all, but they said it was because of the pH of the water in the area where we were, that it didn't host mosquito reproduction.
These are all great questions. A question over here, yeah.
Would you expect to go back or like to go back to a different part of the Amazon? And would it be different from the area where you were?
Would we like to go back to the Amazon, and would it be different? Yes, you know, when you look at the size of the Amazon basin, we're obviously just seeing a tiny speck of it. It's really hot there, and I think no matter where you are, it's going to be really hot. It was almost pointless to put a new shirt, a T-shirt on, because in 5 minutes it's all wet and sweaty. So it's a hot, and even like if you hang up your wet T-shirt in the sun, it doesn't really dry out all that fast. It was, you know, it's a bright sunny day and you're thinking my shirt's going to dry, but it actually doesn't. But no, I would love to go back there again. I
And
found
I
it
think if
very
you went,
interesting.
we were there in the dry season. If you went in the wet season, it'd be a totally different experience
A
too.
question
So-
over here.
Have you heard of anything about the plants that were medicinal or the plants that have impacts on people's, like to make you sleepy, to make you lose your mind, that kind of thing?
Thank you.
Our guide talked a lot about Iwasco, you know, taking but he was a really good plant specialist. You know, the few plants that he pointed out to us were the ones that were antifungal and the ones that were good for prostate health. But what we do know is that 80% of the medications that we started with, you know, 50 years ago came from the Amazon jungle. Now they're able to synthesize medications, but it is a very rich area for the different herbs and plants and finding the uses for them. Because his father had been a shaman and knew how the plants that he grew up with could be used, he was really amazing in teaching us that, but I wouldn't be able to find that vine again, but he could. Well, thank you all for coming. You'll have to tell Monica which
Yeah.
presentation.
This was really great. This was really great. Thank you for coming, Barb and Steve. It was very, very good. And we'd love to bring you back.
Okay.
So we'll be in touch.
Very good. Thank you. And if you haven't seen the teeth or the paddles, feel free to come up. And then on the baskets, we'll find them in the back of the room, I guess. Thanks for all your great questions and your attendance tonight. Have
Thank
a
you,
good
everybody.
rest of the evening.